Today's show, 3 former Maple Leaf teammates and roommates. Mark Kirton, Gabby Boudreau, Greg Hotham. We've got some great stories. Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show. Coming up! Our guests today, here they are. First one, born in Regina, grew up in Scarborough. He was a center. He played junior in Peterborough. He had 27 goals, 44 assists in the 78-79 season, drafted 48th overall by the Leafs in 1978. He played for Toronto, Detroit, and Vancouver. Over 266 games over a 10-year career. Diagnosed with ALS in 2018. He has been a spokesperson and advocate for ALS. Mark Kirton. Also from North York, he was a center. 165 points for the Toronto Marlies. He won the Memorial Cup. He was a Maple Leafs third-round draft pick. He played 20 years of pro hockey, 316 goals, 483 assists in 634 AHL games. His NHL stops included Toronto and Chicago. He played for the Minnesota Fighting Saints of the WHA. He was a head coach for Washington, Anaheim, Minnesota, Vancouver. He was the Jack Adams Coach of the Year, coached 1,087 games, 617 wins, second highest percentage in history. Bruce, Gabby, Boudreau. And from London, Ontario, grew up in Aurora. He was a defenseman. He starred for the Aurora Tigers and Kingston Canadians in junior. He was drafted by Toronto in the 5th round in the 84th draft. Or the 76th draft, 84th overall. Played 3 seasons for the Maple Leafs, 4 seasons for the Penguins, 14 seasons of pro hockey in all. President of Maple Leafs Alumni, Greg Hotham.
The greatest time of my life was when I was with Kirts and Jonesy one year, Hawk the other year, and me and Hawk also played together in Baltimore. But those were the best times of my life. And, you know, it's funny, we don't see each other an awful lot these days, but when we do get together, we could just take off where we left off. And, I mean, we could sit and talk for hours and we just laugh at the stupid stuff that we did back in the day.
Can you imagine, Joe?
Well, Vic, yeah,
I was just
go ahead.
Going to add to that. Can you imagine 3 Leaf prospects, 3 centers, all living together, Jonesy, Gabby, and I, and we did everything together, all day, all night, whatever. And you know what? We couldn't give a fiddler's which guy got called up. We were just having the greatest time of our lives together, which is very unusual when you've got 3 guys knocking on the door to get up to the apple, right?
I think I was still.
Well, let's talk about.
Time, wasn't I?
Yeah, you were in the NHL. I don't want to hear any more about that. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, there's a story here. Yeah.
Well, let
go
me
ahead,
tell one
Hawk.
quick one here. With just before it starts, Kirts, me, and Jonesy were living together, but the house was so small. It was only like 600 square feet. Jonesy was living in a closet. I mean, we put a single bed in there, and he lived in the closet. That's how ridiculous it was. But anyway, go on.
600 square feet. So, Vic, do you have a picture of that team, that Calder Cup team from 78, 79? Maybe if you can throw that up too. And then there's an article that Kirts forwarded me. There you go, guys. All right. There's Gabby on the front row there, Kirts in the front row. And here's an article that you also sent me, Kirts. Jack Butterfield of the AHL imposed more than 3,000 fines. A brawl between the Maine Mariners and New Brunswick Hawks that involved Pat Quinn and Eddie Johnson. So these guys were on the ice fighting. Is that how it went, guys? Old time
why don't
hockey.
Why don't you ask Hawk how the brawl started?
Okay, how'd the brawl start?
So anyway, I get the puck at we're playing Maine Mariners are in our own building, so I get the puck on the right point, and I shoot it around. I miss the net. It goes around to my partner Kevin Kemp, and Kevin was a tough guy, a bit of a screw loose, and he took a shot he missed a net, but in the meantime, a guy named, I think his name's Gordon Morrison, I think, big guy, he ran him at the blue line. So the puck went around to me, and I missed the net again, and it went around to Kevin again. And he took a shot, and this Gordon Morrison ran him again. Well, that was enough for Kevin. He two-handed him right over the forehead, and I think he had a Sherwood coming out of his forehead. And I look over, next thing you know, the whole their bench is coming at him. And they had Glenn Cochran, and I can't remember all the other guys too, but next thing you know it's a full-scale brawl. Now, there wasn't just the one. We had two in the same game. And back in those days too, the two benches are side by side, but there was no partition, so you could just walk right across and just start fighting. So next thing you know, the coaches, Pat Quinn's into it, the trainers are into it. Eddie Johnson and him are going at it. It was after you think about it, it was funny as heck, but dangerous as heck as well, especially with guys like Glenn Cochran, right? And so I think Gabby, I think he grabbed the person that was selling the popcorn up in the seats, I think, because I never saw him.
No. Get it right. I grabbed Paul Evans, who I grew up with in Toronto, so I knew we wouldn't fight. And to make the matters even worse, it wasn't the Paul Evans from Peterborough, it was Paul Evans from Toronto. To make matters worse, once the brawl was ended, Hawk had said something, and they came in our dressing room after Hawk. We had to protect him, or they were gonna kill him in our dressing room.
Okay,
I can't remember that.
Let me back up.
Because of the two-hander. Go ahead, Mark.
So Joe, what happened was once the fight got going, I ended up with Frank Bathe, if you can imagine.
Oh,
the guy
I know Bathe,
with
yeah.
beard down to his belly button. He was going around suckering guys.
Oshawa boy.
And I couldn't hold him. So there was a pile of guys. There was a pile of guys by the bench. So I threw him backwards, and Eddie Johnson reached over and pinned him to the boards. And Pat Quinn came over and jumped EJ, and they rolled on the ice. And they were at center ice throwing him toe to toe. And then the fight moved into our dressing room, where Ken the Rat Linsman was stick fighting with Trevor Johansson. Do you remember that, guys? It was crazy.
I don't remember
I
that
remember
part.
it. Hey, I remember too, Pat Quinn and EJ were at center ice, and they were both ripped off their suit jackets, throwing punches. We had a guy by the name of Alain Belanger on our team. He was throwing punches, but he didn't know if he was getting hit or not, because you couldn't tell with him. Like he was out to lunch. So I mean, it was the craziest thing. It was right out of the WWE, and it was hilarious.
And get this: the schedule maker scheduled 3 games in a row against this team. First 3 games of the year, 2 in Moncton and 1 in Maine. And then when we went to Maine, we were short guys, and we said to Murray Bannerman, the goalie, "Don't be causing any shit here, because we're shorthanded." We lost 2 or 3 guys in warm-up that had the flu and couldn't play. And then we had a big brawl right off the get-go, and they virtually backed us right off the ice, eh, Hawk?
Yeah.
Oh, man. It was scary.
Well, how did you play?
What's that?
So short-handed. How did you play all short-handed?
I got 2 and 2 that night. Just want to say
3 and 2?
Minus 4.
Oh yeah.
No, but Joe, back then that year, there was crazies everywhere, characters all over the league. Like in Hershey, Pennsylvania, I remember Daryl Sutter and I sat beside each other, and you had 5 goons starting, and they walked right by our dressing room going, "Kill, kill, kill." And I looked at Sudsy, and so I said to Sudsy, "You want to go out there?" He goes, "Not really." Oh, man. That was Gary Risley and Nelson Burton and Archie Henderson and those guys. Oh, man.
Well, this is crazy.
Where was Mel? Was Mel Hewitt on that team?
No, I
No,
don't know where.
he was a year or two after that.
Okay.
And then I think one game, Joe, against New Haven, there was a guy named Frank Beaton, and his nickname was Never. Well, he looked at me in the corner, and I think I wet myself.
He was that nasty looking, was he?
Oh, he had a stare on him like it would melt you.
Yeah,
we've been on for 5 minutes, and this thing has regressed.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about a little bit about your NHL careers because they actually happened despite all that. Gabby first, okay? Do you remember this one? Okay, this is March 12th, 1977. First NHL goal. Randy Carlyle with the great breakout feed, and you're going to show us some pretty good wheels right here. Tell us about this one.
Okay, if you notice where I was when Randy got the puck, I was at the red line, first of all.
Yeah.
Which is typical. And, I mean, I think it was a 6-0 win. I don't know if it was the first goal or the sixth goal, but it was on Jim Rutherford, and I think he got back at me this year.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, we're going to get to that a little bit too. Well, actually, let's go. Yeah, okay. All right. So let's get. Do you think that Rutherford remembered that goal?
Well, I'm sure he was reminded a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good goal, man. That was a goal scorer's goal. No doubt about that. So let's talk about the Leafs had that great playoff run in '78. These guys are done in the minors. You got called up for that particular run, but you were injured against the Islanders. But you were interviewed by Dave Hodge on Hockey Night Canada, and we have that interview now. Go ahead and run that.
Well, I thought in the first period the Islanders had the better of the scoring chances, and I was a little worried when they got their goal because it was the first time they'd gotten an early goal in a while. And then in the second period, we came out hitting, and I think we started to take the play away from them a little bit. And as the period progressed, I think our guys were coming on, and those guys were wiltering a bit. I just hope it goes like that in the third period.
You think the Leafs try to come out and you would know, of course, if this is part of Roger Nielsen's strategy, and play the first few minutes of a period just as hard as they can? Because I thought that's what maybe turned it around in the second period.
Well, I don't know if he does it on purpose. I know the first few minutes of every period you're more rested than at the end of the period, and the guys are so up and hyper for the game that when they come out, it's natural to start off a little tougher than at the end of the period.
You're not looking forward to overtime?
No, I don't think my heart can take it. Not another one. I think we'll win it in this period, and then I'm just keeping my fingers crossed.
Well, of course, the Maple Leafs have lost 2 overtime games here at the Nassau Coliseum. It'll be exciting. Bruce will wait and see whether we get overtime in Game 7.
Well, there you
go. Was the nod in that tie any bigger?
I've never been known for my dressing habits.
Gabby, you were good looking, man. Back in the day.
And you know what? The analysis was pretty sharp. We could see that coming, Gabby. The analysis was pretty astute there, I thought.
Yeah, well, give me a couple beers and I can talk.
So anyway, that things worked out pretty well for the Leafs. They had a nice run. They made it to the semifinals that year. Let's talk about now, Mark. You finally got your shot at the big club. It was October 10th, 1979. It was the Leafs home opener, and Darryl Sittler broke his ankle. By the way, you were going to get cut up earlier, but Sittler broke his ankle. You were going to get called up, but you got hurt that night, so Gabby went up instead. By the way, that was it. Now here we go. Home opener, and it's 79. Ian Turnbull fires it in. Gary Butler's going to send a lovely feed into the slot. Kirts, I believe that was your first shift as a Maple Leaf. Did you think at this time, I'm probably going to have 200 or 300 goals this year?
Absolutely. And if you notice, it was a one-timer, Joe?
Yeah, and that was never
peanut butter
stayed more than a
shelf.
millisecond on your. Yeah, that's right. Never more than a millisecond on that stick, and it was in the top.
Yeah, there's Hawk there.
Yeah, there you go. Hawk, yeah, there you go. He was a plus on that game for sure.
Absolutely. No, it was quite a thrill, no question about it. But the problem was the next game, I lost a draw to somebody and went racing out to the point, back to the center, in the net, and back down to Moncton again.
Yeah, that fast, eh? That fast. No sense of humor. What? And who was coaching you at the time? That was at Nielsen, wasn't it? Wait, how could you do that, your Peterborough buddy?
I think it was Joe Crozier, wasn't it?
Oh, was it Crozier that year?
Floyd
Oh, I'm
Smith,
sorry.
wasn't
Yeah,
it? Floyd Smith,
Or
wasn't
Floyd
it?
Smith. Floyd Smith.
Oh, it was Floyd. Floyd. Okay, that was Floyd's.
It could have been one of 10 back
Right.
then.
Yeah, they did have that carousel, didn't they? Yeah. So Hawk, it's your turn now. This is the 79-80 season. You're up with a big club. Obviously, as a defenseman, you didn't get many opportunities, but here you are. Kings on the attack. You steal the puck, turn up ice. Look at the Jets here. Around the defender. Backhand to forehand. Pick in the corner on Mario Lassard. Giving the Leafs the lead. Do you remember that one?
Do you know what? I've never seen that goal.
More than once.
Bobby Orr.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Look at that. Look at the speed. Now, that goalie, Mario Lassard, was a former teammate of mine. So later in the game, we crossed each other on the ice, and he gave me the big wink. So I think he let me get that goal. So it was pretty funny. Look at that, Gabby. Look at that. Okay?
There's a good.
That's a
guy.
beak and a half right there.
So it's pretty good. Eh?
Should we tell him that? Should we tell him that this story that we were in Moncton and Gabby and I were living together, and anyway, Kirts is going to him and Keith Crowder are going on a cruise, and we're in the playoffs, right? And Kirts keeps calling me and saying, "Come on down," and he says, and I said, "I can't. You know, the team's in the playoffs. I got to go and stuff." Well, we ended up playing in Maine on a Monday, and I hurt my knee, so we get into Moncton that night. I think it was a Tuesday, and they said, "Well, you got to fly home to Toronto. They want to see you." So I flew home on the Wednesday to Toronto. Saw the doctor. He said, "You're done for the season." Kirts calls me and says, "Listen, you want to come down?" I said, "I can't. Gabby and I are living together. We've ordered pizza 15 days in a row, right? We got these pizza boxes that are as taller than Gabby, right? So anyway, so, and I'm thinking I can't go. I mean, you know, the team, I got to be with the team." So finally, because just to give you a little background there too, is that I went up and down all that season with Toronto. So I was pretty pissed off about what was going on. So anyway, Kirts calls me and I said, "Yeah, okay." So I flew home on the Thursday, and I said, before I left, I said, "Gabby, can you drive my car home?" So he drove my vehicle home, and I went down to Fort Lauderdale. We got on the cruise, and I think Doug Carpenter, if I'm not mistaken, was coaching at the time. And he said to Gabby, "Where's Doc?" And Gabby says, "He's down in Florida," right? And what, Gabby, stuff like that?
Well, it was Lou Angotti, I think. Wasn't it Lou Angotti? Because Carpenter coached us in Cincinnati. But yeah, whatever you're saying, I'm agreeing with, because I don't remember a lot of back then.
It was
Kirts,
without a doubt. Oh yeah, I talk into coming, and it's probably first time that's ever been done. He just left the team on his own, no problem.
I wasn't really happy with Greg at that moment.
Hey Gabby, before you go, can you give us the Joe Crozier when you ran over him at practice?
Well, yeah. What happened, Joe Crozier is an old style coach where he'd sit in the middle of the rink and he would and you'd have to go around him. And one day he was doing a drill where the forwards were the defensemen and the defensemen were the forwards. So I was playing defense. He had a coffee in his hand. He was looking the other way, and I came screaming into him, and he went down like a ton of bricks. Nobody helped him up. But we laughed our butts off at him because he was a mean old codger. I got to tell you, he was tough to deal with.
Do you know what? He used to chew gum, and he would go and he'd stick the gum right in between the crossbar and the pole down to the net, and almost defy guys to try and shoot the pucks to knock that gum down, because he'd come back at the end of practice and he put it back in his mouth again. But he was
well, yeah, but don't forget, Kurt. So what he used to do as well is he used to bring everybody in to the goal, right where you said you put the gum on the post, but sometimes he put it right behind his ear, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
he talked to the team for about 2 or 3 minutes, right? And then once he finished talking to the team, he pulled it from behind his ear and he put it back in his mouth again.
Oh, you know what? There was nobody like Joe. He was great. He was. And remember, he used to always come on the ice, and probably about a dozen times a year with his skate guards on. Remember? And he'd step on the ice and almost rip his groins.
Hey,
So,
I gotta go. I gotta
I
go.
know you
But
gotta
one
go.
quick,
Yeah.
one quick
I gotta
story
ask you
about
something
Joe.
too. Yeah.
Oh, then you ask, because my story's too long.
Okay,
No,
I was
no,
just
go
going to
ahead.
say, like, the guy who's got 1,000 coaching, 1,000 games coached, 617 coaching victories, number 2 in percentage all time. Did you learn anything from a guy like Joe Crozier and the guys who
100%.
ran the clubs?
He knew his hockey. He was just like, we can all sit here and talk. The old school guys were simple, but they made you do what you had to do to play the right way. And there was not a lot of give and take like there is now with the kids. That when you're coaching, I mean, they don't just take it when you tell them something. They want to know why you're doing it. But back then, Joe would tell you what to do, and if you played that way, you usually had success. And I mean, I think Daryl got a lot of that from whether it was Joe or Bob Pulford, and from there, because he coaches very similar to that these days.
Gabby, I know you're with the NHL Network now. You had the last coaching gig in Vancouver, which was clearly you got thrown under the bus there. Bruce, there it is. And, I know that's probably left a sour taste in your mouth, but I'm guessing, are you done with coaching, or are you ready for another gig, like maybe Toronto?
I'm only done if nobody calls me. If they call me, I'll coach. I'd love to. I don't want to give it up, but I mean, I may look older, but I still got that energy. And one of the things I'd like to say, these are the two of the best guys I've ever known in my life, best teammates. I wish we had 2 hours here, because we could sit and laugh and tell stories like there's no tomorrow. And hopefully someday soon I'm with both of you, and then we can start talking golfing stories as well. But I'm sorry I have to get off and go. I got to do the network now. So you guys be good. Love yous all, and we'll see you soon,
Yeah.
I hope.
All right, buddy.
Thanks for this, Gabby. We really appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Bye now.
Okay, guys.
See you guys.
No, Hawk, I know you said you had a time deadline too, but are you okay for a while?
I got it. Actually, I'm supposed to be in a meeting right now.
Okay. So it's going to leave me you and Kirts briefly though. You see where the Maple Leafs are right now. I just want to ask you, what would you do first, Hawk, before you head off? What would you do if you were running this franchise?
Oh man, that's a tough question, because there's so many different things that people are saying. But I've been to a lot of the home games lately. Like, I've always, sure, the top four didn't play the way they should. Now, is it a time to blow it up? I don't know. I just think what I see in the playoffs is that I don't think they're tough enough and gritty enough. And I don't think their defense is solid enough either. I don't think they have a good enough puck moving defenseman. But is it? I'm not a real fan of William Nylander. I think even though he's got a lot of points in the playoffs and so on, I just don't think he's the type of player you're going to win with. It's got, he had a great career year this year, point wise, but he's pretty soft. And but as far as the management goes, if you replace Kyle Dubas, who are you going to replace him with? Right? I mean, who's out there that's better than what he is right now? And if you find somebody, yes. I don't know if there really is anybody out there now. Does somebody have to pay the price? What maybe end up being the coach? Possibly, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it really falls back on him. And I thought Kyle Dubas did a pretty good job at the trade deadline, getting in the players that he got in. They were grittier. They're kind of the type of hockey players that you wanted. The unfortunate part too is that, and I said this to somebody today, is that the Leafs didn't have enough secondary scoring as well. We can get on the top four players and what, they didn't do this or that. But when you get into the secondary scorers and the bottom six, players, and even you might be able to add a guy like Bunting onto that list as well, they didn't score enough, right? I mean, if your top six aren't scoring, when you look at playoff hockey, a lot of times it's at third and fourth liners that are really doing something for you, and there wasn't enough secondary scoring. So it wouldn't surprise me that somebody in the management will go, whether it's the president, whether it's the GM, or it's the coach. I would suspect that one of those three may, and it wouldn't surprise me one of those four players at some point may go. Obviously, your hands are tied with Tavares, and you're not going to move. You're not going to move Matthews. So that really comes down to Marner, and it comes down to Nylander if you're going to move it. So, I guess it depends on the return that you get if you go out and do it. But clearly, after 4 years, it's not working, and something has to be done, in my mind.
Now, would you be hiring Gabby as your coach if you let Sheldon Keefe go?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with Kirts and I as assistants, for sure.
I don't think you swing that. Swing that. All right, Hawk. What are your thoughts on that, Kurt? What are your thoughts on where this team should be
take it
going?
a step further. I think that
guys, I hate to do it, but I got to go. Sorry.
Okay, Hawk. We'll see you, bud.
Thanks, Hawk. Thanks for taking this time to join us. It's been great. Thank you. We'll do it again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Okay.
Thanks, buddy.
You see,
okay,
I think
Kurt's what we're saying.
I'm agreeing with Hawk that probably there'll be one move in management, and it probably is the coach, because after a few years, you need the fresh voice, right? The different voice, and maybe a tougher coach on these guys. But the concerning thing for me is when you take a look at the last four teams, they are all teams. And when I say teams, I think of the way Roger coached in Peterborough and what have you. Roll the four lines and, be a team, a heavy team that plays hard every shift and produces as a team. The concerning part I have with the Leafs is I heard the other day that Matthews wants 15 mil. And that sends alarm bells go off for me, because the Bergerons and Pasternak and some of these other guys, they take hometown discounts because they know that their team is on their way as a team to be successful. And I think if you start giving Matthews 15 mil, it pulls away from the team goal, if that makes any sense. Because take a look at these teams, Carolina and Seattle and Dallas and whatever the fourth team is. They're all
Florida.
Yeah. They're all teams. Yeah. So I think they need a stronger, tougher voice behind the bench. And I think that they need to veer towards more of a team approach than the core four. Because you shut down the core four, or 80% of it, you win. The other team wins. Right?
Kirts, I want to talk to you about, that I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think that I think Gabby might I think Gabby might be the answer to what he's done. And look at his record.
You know what? Gabby would have been the answer if they would have brought him in mid-season or 2/3 the way through. But how are you going to make a change when they're playing so well during the year? I think Gabby'd be really good at the stage in his career to jump in process. I'm not sure that the Leaf brass would bring a Gabby in at this point. I wish they would, but I don't think they will. So I could see Quenneville there before I could see Gabby. But
Yeah.
you know what? Time will tell. Time will tell.
Kirts, I want to switch gears here. Talk about ALS. I know that June is a big month for you, ALS month, and a couple of years back, you got a chance to throw at the first pitch at a Jays game. I know that was a great honor for you. And how do you see things going right now in terms of where you've come, where ALS has come, where ALS is now? Are we getting somewhere? Are we getting some?
You know what? I really think we are. Here? I really think we are, and I think I've mentioned it a few times that with Boria Salming's passing, it almost is like a turning point, and because now it's really front and center from an advocacy standpoint. And I know with my group, which is ALS Action Canada, the only patient-led group of its kind in Canada, I know that we're making great strides ahead in every area with the government, with Health Canada, with a whole bunch of different ALS entities. And we're about to launch what's called a super fund, which the Maple Leafs were the first donators to that super fund, which is about 580,000. And since then, we've received monies from Ottawa, and I think Edmonton's on the way, and what have you. And that super fund, Joe, is going to be a fund that we're going to brand the heck out of across Canada. And we're going to create an advisory board that decides where those funds go as far as ALS hotspots go, the dispersal of the money. But the idea is, with the super fund, that this advisory group will encompass a bunch of other ALS entity leaders, so that we're bringing the whole community together across Canada instead of having everybody duplicating work all over the place. So I think the super fund, combined with the 7 Canadian NHL teams being on board with a project that I'm about to release fairly soon called Scoring for ALS. When you combine all that stuff, yes, we're moving forward. And the idea is to get the drugs into the ALS patients as fast as possible and ultimately find a cure.
We had Boria on the show a couple of times, just a couple of years ago for the last time, and it's unbelievable. He looked so good at the time, and then shortly after he was diagnosed, and then shortly after that he was gone. Why were the effects so devastating for the King?
Well, there's different kinds of ALS, Joe, and he had what's called like there's genetic ALS, which is what Chris Snow has in Calgary, and only 5 to 10% have that. And genetic ALS does have a really good treatment that can give you longevity, and that's the one kind. The kind that Boria and I had or have is called sporadic. And unfortunately, Boria has it in his chest, which is called bulbar. And when you have it in your chest, it starts attacking your breathing, your swallowing, your talking right away. Whereas mine started in my limbs, and the last place it's going to go is my chest. So that's the difference. The bulbar guys go down pretty quick, and the flailing limb ALS, you tend to have a little bit more longevity. But at the end of the day, it affects everybody differently. It really does. And if you're one of the lucky ones that can last longer than 3 to 5 years, then, you know, you go with it. And that's basically, I'm one of the lucky ones so far.
When were you first diagnosed, Kirts?
2018, but that's a bit of a floating date because my first symptom was 2015, which was twitching in my right bicep and then weakness in my right hand. So, you know, when people say, when did you get diagnosed? Well, you know, I could have been diagnosed in 2015, right? If they knew what it was. But that's another problem. Sometimes it takes 2 years to diagnose this illness. So,
I know you talked about how the Maple Leafs have been supportive. We actually have a picture of you and the Alumni getting behind ALS right there. Beautiful shot, and it's so good to see that. And you mentioned too, with the figure $580,000 raised by the Maple Leafs, all the Canadian franchises getting on board. And if somebody wants to get more information, you said Scoring for ALS. Is that a website that's already up?
We haven't launched that yet, Joe. But over the next 2 months, we will we'll probably have some sort of a press release on what it is. But the reality is, what we are trying to do is have all 7 Canadian teams. We keep track of their goals for as a team, and then we total the 7 teams' goals, divide it by 7, and then each club would come up with $1,000 to match the goals for. So if it's 200 or 250 per team, that's about 250 grand per team, which is $2 million a year sustainable. And then once the 7 teams, once that gets all the dust settles, then we're going to try and take it to the 32 teams. So that's sort of that's the Scoring for ALS project. But I'm just in process. I got Montreal left to talk to, and then I'm going to circle back to all of them again and start to cross some T's and dot some I's and get that in place before next season. So that, combined with the Super Fund, are 2 of the exciting things that we're doing right now.
And also you mentioned ALS Action Canada. That's where the support needs to go. ALS Action Canada.
Yeah,
right.
The reason why this group formed 2.5 years ago is because us as patients just didn't feel like enough was being done by the other ALS entities, provincially or nationally. So we just felt we'd have a lot more power as patients speaking out than being part of a organization that had a big infrastructure. So we're redesigning our website, and then we'll launch those 2 projects, and then we're off to the races, Joe.
I got one question. My son wanted me to ask the question before I go. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice, like hockey wise, or what?
Anywhere.
Anywhere. Well, you know what? Most of the advice that you get in your professional career is usually at the beginning of it. And I remember Daryl Sittler giving me some advice on the ice. He said, whenever you start as a center, whenever you start running around or you feel like your team is starting to run around in your own end, he says, as a center, you control it. And I said, well, what do you mean? He says, just go stand still in the slot. And if you stand still in the slot, the puck has to come through there eventually. And then when your teammates see that you're under control, they will start to get under control. I never forgot that. And it was that was one thing he told me on the ice. And then off the ice, I brought this up to him the other day because he's been out to visit me a few times. He said to me, back when we were getting towards the end of my career and the end of his career, he said, when you're finished the game, you either got to stay in it 100% or you get out of it 100%. You cannot have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, like a lot of alumni do, and then they just run into problems, financially and every other way. And I always remembered that because when I stopped playing, I almost stopped talking to everybody in hockey for a couple of years till I got my real estate career going. And then I had the confidence to go back and talk to all my old hockey buddies because I had something going. I think that was probably the biggest piece of advice I'd ever got, Joe.
Well, I know you've had a tremendous real estate career and still going strong with your wife and through the family. That's awesome. And you know what, Kirts, I want to say that we plan to do this every year. So, we want to have you here for all, okay?
Well, you know what? I say it every birthday. February 3rd, I always say, all right, made it to 66. Next goal is 67. There you go.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
The game.
All right, buddy.
But I do agree with Gabby. When we got an hour, we got some beauty stories. We got some good ones.
Well, yeah. We'll come back because we didn't even get to the golf stories, for crying out loud.
Yeah. But listen, thanks for having me. I always love doing it.
Always thanks, Kirts. All right, buddy.
Bye.
Good talking to you, and we'll see you soon, I'm sure.
All
More
right,
sports
man.
when we come back.
Joe Tilley here. My wife Penny Claire and I recently took an amazing trip to Egypt and Jordan with Trip Oppo. And here are our top 10 must-dos. Number 8, the rose-red city of Petra, Jordan, and a stay in a unique cave hotel. Visiting Petra was like stepping into a different world, a place where ancient architecture and natural beauty come together to create something truly spectacular. As I wandered through the narrow canyons and towering cliffs that surrounded the city, I felt like I was on an adventure in a hidden world, uncovering secrets and marvels at every turn. And the Cave Hotel was a perfect place to stay, like staying in a secret hideaway with cozy rooms carved right into the rock and breathtaking views of the surrounding landscape. I would highly recommend that you book your next trip through Trip Oppo. Call them today.
My COSA Swiss pick of the week. Last week, I took the number 6 horse, War a Wee Yes, in the 7th race from Thursday night's card at Mohawk. War a Wee Yes showed great heart and determination in the deep stretch with Bob McClure in the buggy. The Sean Stacy trainee got the job done in 154 and 4. Sweet determination. Held on for second. That 6-2-3 trifecta returned $44.80. This week, Saturday night, the SBOA Finals, the finest standardbred talent in the country. I'm looking at the $145,000 final for 3-year-old colts and gelding trotters. Tuscan Prince was particularly impressive in victory last week's qualifiers. 152 and 3. Louis-Philippe Roy drives. Hasty Bid, Passerino, Osceola also deserve consideration, so they're going in the exacta and trifecta. For all the racing updates, visit COSA TV on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Go to hpibet.com for your wagering options.
Joe Tilley Sports is brought to you by COSA, Central Ontario Standardbred Association, providing a united voice for harness horse people racing at Ontario tracks. Check out your benefits today at COSAonline.com and check out COSA TV on Facebook and YouTube for all the latest harness news and live action updates. Live racing year-round. Go to hpibet.com for all your wagering options. Become a member today, and your first bet is free. That's hpibet.com. Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. the only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Guests on Joe Tilley Sports receive a gift certificate from Classica Imports. Top of the line imported men's clothing. Check out the Classica Essential Collection now. Go to shopclassica.com.
Okay, we want to thank all the folks who make this show possible. These are friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great people. We highly recommend them all. Thank you for your support of Canadian and local sports. A reminder that the show is available on Spotify, iTunes, Breaker, Radio Public, Google Podcast, and Pocket Cast, as well as the Spanglish Network and Zingo TV and Buzz TV Live. Also, check out the show on YouTube. There are lots of great past shows available, clips on there. Like and subscribe. It is absolutely, positively free. Thanks once again to Gabby Boudreau, Mark Kirton, and Greg Hotham for being on the program. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Do you want to buy or sell a home? Could 31 years of real estate experience help you? Why not speak to an amazing team that loves to overpromise and overdeliver? Aldo has a tremendous team of experts on staff. They are committed to making your next real estate transaction smooth and comfortable. Call 416-GET-ALDO or visit getaldo.com. Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today. Let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678.
MNP, a leading Canadian national accounting, tax, and business accounting firm. MNP proudly serves and responds to the need of their clients in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, MNP provides a collaborative, cost-effective approach to do business and personal strategies to help people and organizations to succeed across the country and around the world. With local offices in Oshawa, Mississauga, Burlington, and more, their team is here to support you. Visit mnp.ca today to learn more.